needs of our planet were greater than she could supply. So we sent men beyond the reaches of our atmosphere. But the open space gave way to an insurgency.
Call of Duty is often criticised for not changing enough between its annual instalments. Sure, if you were to compare the most recent release to the original, you'd see quite a stark difference, but that change didn't come about quickly, occurring across 12 games in as many years. The franchise is still absolutely huge. You could argue that it peaked in terms of creative output around 2009, with the release of Modern Warfare 2, the hardcore community growing increasingly jaded and disillusioned with the franchise. Initial impressions of Infinite Warfare hint at the most progressive and subversive entry in years. So why is it then that its reveal trailer is YouTube's second most disliked video of all time? Well, it could be down to the fact that the only way to get your hands on the COD 4 remaster is to pay £70 for the Legacy edition of Infinite Warfare. Or it could be because since 2012, every Call of Duty game has been set in the near or far future, which is no doubt due to the emphasis on enhanced player mobility seen in shooters in the last few years. It wouldn't make much sense to have players running along walls and double jumping in World War II after all. Or perhaps the recent efforts of the genre in general, not just of Call of Duty, to move as far into the future, to be as far removed from reality as possible, is a reflection of developers wanting to keep politics out of their games, of wanting to avoid a potential controversy, having anything meaningful to say about the modern world and its conflicts might arouse, however cowardly and ultimately futile that may be. It is very possible then that all of the hate being thrown at Infinite Warfare is simply the result of fans having palates in need of a good scrubbing, which could also explain why Battlefield 1 seems to have just about every gamer under the sun backing it, despite its World War I setting being little more than a mask of cheap skin cream on an ageing formula. And so when with every new installment Call of Duty drifts further into the future, its fans feel ignored, indignant even. In that respect, Activision and Call of Duty's various developers could be seen to be out of touch with their audience. They want the series to turn back the clock to the time periods in which the most beloved Call of Duty games were set. The idea, however, that it is the responsibility of game developers, or of anyone in any creative industry for that matter, to bend to the will of their audience is worse than fallacious. It's entirely distorted. I'm not going to pretend that Infinite Warfare is some avant-garde, on this fringe experiment, but when its developers create something that deviates from the formula, something that isn't to your specific taste, that's your problem, not theirs. Call of Duty fans aren't upset because the series isn't changing enough. They're upset because the series isn't changing in a way that they personally find agreeable. Just because you buy it every year doesn't make Call of Duty your intellectual property. You're not entitled to shape it or to mould it how you see fit. And if you don't like it, you don't need to buy it. Vote for change with your wallet, not by whining on the internet that life isn't fair because this year's Call of Duty has spaceships in it. This kind of twisted attitude isn't new to the gaming industry either. When Microsoft revealed their Xbox One for the first time, for example, they were condemned for flying in the face of the status quo, while Sony were lauded as God's gift to man because they've kept things the same. And why? Because Microsoft's idea for an ambitious but admittedly flawed DRM scheme wasn't shared by consumers. Such a corrupted and sense of entitlement is damaging to the vitality of the industry because it infringes on creative freedom. When creators aren't afforded the space necessary to experiment, no one profits. When consumers demurred over the Xbox One, it didn't encourage Microsoft to learn from what went wrong, it forced them to hit the undo button. In the same way, Infinity Ward isn't going to come away from reading the comments on their Infinite Warfare trailer with anything constructive. They'll treat Call of Duty like a busted hard drive and restore it to the last time it wasn't so broken, which may seem like a good thing to some, but it's myopic. It is unlikely then that Call of Duty will ever reascend to the heights of 2009, because the next time Infinity Ward takes a crack at the series, it'll be with a game that's a safe bet. It won't be something that's innovative or refreshing, because when they tried to experiment with new ideas like space battles and zero gravity environments, they were nailed to the wall. So when in a few years' time the allure of a Call of Duty set in the past or in present wears thin, when the same old, tiresome thing gets pushed out the door every single year simply because it sells, when no risks are being taken, the only way out is to break that cycle. If you want Call of Duty to change for the better, you need to take a step back and let it.